but alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch the scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on ucy.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm really happy to be back. What a crazy debate we had last Wednesday. Hopefully everybody got to catch it. We had several anarchists on the show to talk about some interesting topics that actually apply to what's going on today with all this news with Milo. And we're going to be talking about several topics related to what's going on with Milo because we've got some special guests in the studio tonight. I've got my partner at the Anti-Media, SM Gibson. First of all, what's up, man?
What up?
Oh, dude, well, we're just hanging out here and talking about this crazy news. I mean, it was nuts today, right?
It was definitely entertainment, to say the least. Positive, negative, ever how you want to look at it. It was chaos and crazy, and it looks like for the foreseeable future, Milo's upward trajectory has just taken a downward spiral. We'll see what tomorrow brings. It looks like this time tomorrow he may not have a job with Breitbart anymore. He lost his book deal today. He lost his keynote speaker spot at CPAC.
Tough day.
Yeah, rough day for Milo.
That's what happens when you talk about it being okay to have sex with kids that are much younger than the age of consent, I guess. Very, very bad things. And we're going to talk about some of this stuff because Milo's not the only one that thinks that stuff is okay. That, unfortunately, is a huge problem. Like sex trafficking, pedophilia, like child abuse and all that. This stuff is running rampant. And unfortunately, it also goes on at the highest realms of the power structures of the country and the world. I mean, how many stories, SM, have we covered? And DB, welcome to the show as well. How many stories about pedophile rings being broken up have we covered just in the past month alone?
Yeah, we've talked about this kind of at length on mine and your show, that just since Trump has taken office, I believe there's been somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 arrests for human trafficking. Also with the huge Pizzagate, stuff going on. Whether you subscribe to the evidence that's been presented or not, there's definitely something going on in this country that's very nefarious and really around the world. And today's story with Milo kind of brings all that to light a little bit more.
Yeah, dude. And, this stuff is at the front of everybody's minds. DB, you there, man? We can't hear you.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring up a few things just to get kind of my own personal take on it out of the way. everybody saw the Rogan stuff, and or if you haven't, you can find it online, and it's a very long interview. It's like 3 hours. And, just the very basic gist of it is that, during Milo's ascent to where he is now, he was privy to and witness to pedophilia going on at parties, especially in Hollywood, like you mentioned. And as somebody that was a victim himself, I understand he's afraid for his life, but the cat's out of the bag now. And there's only one real way he can go forward. He can either slink into obscurity, or he can ask for the only protection that he can really have, which is the federal government's protection, as scary an implication as that is, and he can be deposed at a federal court level. I mean, Sessions will hear him. Sessions is the exact perfect person to hear him. And so I say there's a hashtag depose Milo, because that's what we can get positive out of this, because there's so much negative about the guy, period. But I'm starting to see him sort of almost as a tragic figure in a way, because he was a victim himself. And who knows what that did to the guy's psyche. And also, let's not pretend this is an alt-right, alt-left anything thing. I mean, Dennis Hastert, he's the sickest pedo there is, and that guy's on the right. And there's going to be some left guys coming out, and there'll be arrests coming out, and it's good, man. We can only support the authorities bringing these guys down one at a time. And I know it's a tough job, and they have to have proof. They can't just go after these guys, because look at Hastert. He only got 15 months. Look at Anthony Weiner. He's in a sex addict rehab center right now. You got to be careful, because these guys will weasel their way out of it.
Yeah, me and SM were actually talking about that before the show, because there are a lot of people showing sympathy towards Milo, and it's like, oh well, he was a victim himself and stuff. It's like, yeah, that's really horrible. So why is he going around being an asshole to everybody else? And DB, you say depose Milo. I know there's a lot of people out there that would support deport Milo, because that's all he goes around talking about, is how we need to start deporting people and ratting on our fellow classmates who may happen to be undocumented immigrants and stuff. And to talk about that, we have the amazing activist and just all around, fighter for justice, Manny Aguilar in the studio. What's up, dude? How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Good dinner by Lily, enchiladas and everything. What's up, Jake? What's up, DV? My Migra brother over there, DV Schwartz. Trafficking, we've had a good success. Spoke at the university, UCLA. I did the March of Human Trafficking just a couple months back last year. And I mean, it's a sad thing, because it's an international problem, so like that. We had numbers of 476 lowlifes being arrested over it. I think that's a big number. That's a big victory, stuff like that. And I hope that gets cleaned up quick and stuff like that. But we need to pay attention to the stories and stuff like that. A lot of things that were happening at the conference also, where these old men are going to these countries and having sex with a 10-year-old. I mean, if that is not disgusting, I don't know what is, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and you know what really blows my mind is that, first of all, like, recently, if you've been paying attention to some of this media coverage, they're trying to normalize this stuff. They're trying to normalize pedophiles as maybe having a disorder rather than being criminals. And
they're hiding behind fundamentalist Abrahamic religions. Let's not kid ourselves. They're hiding behind people that are ardent religious followers of Orthodox Judaism, Catholicism, and Islam, man. And they're going to use these ways to say, well, it's part of my faith. And I don't care if it's your faith, man. It cannot be normalized, not in this country.
No, it can't be normalized, man. And that's exactly my big beef here. Now, I've got a million beefs with Milo. I think the guy's an absolute imbecile that has been latched onto as some kind of intellectual because he's edgy and he makes saying fuck immigrants sound cool. So, screw that guy even before all this stuff came out. But it's particularly what has come out today about Milo, and how he's been going around talking about how, more or less, he's been advocating a normalization of pedophilia, and that to me is absolutely unacceptable. And Manny, dude, you were just talking about how, American men go to places like Thailand or Malaysia and go pay to have sex with 10-year-olds. I mean, this is the kind of shit Milo is trying to normalize, right? I mean,
It's-
isn't this shit unacceptable?
It's very unacceptable. And after I heard two of the people that have been trafficking and they finally got rescued, when you hear those stories, if it doesn't affect you, something is wrong with your heart. And we're gonna leave it at that.
Yeah, dude, it's really tough to talk about because this stuff is so bad. It's so horrible, and it should not be normalized. Children are not the age of consent until they're adults. You know, that's just it. It doesn't matter if you mature early. It doesn't matter if you go through puberty when you're 11. It doesn't mean you're okay enough in the head to be consenting to things like this.
A
DB,
scientific consensus is 16. That's the youngest it is in any country, even the cutting edge countries. The only country where it's okay underneath that age is where child brides are okay. And again, because you have pedophiles hiding behind fundamentalist religious practices, it just cannot persist, man. These people have got to be, I don't even know what you do. You cannot fix these people's mind frame.
Castration? I know.
But it's cultural at a point too. Like Wahhabism is cultural, and yes, you die by the sword if you don't follow it. Like, how do we even combat that?
It's really tough. It's a really tough question. I think we've been dealing with this issue for a really long time now, and I don't know if there's ever been a effective way to deal with it. It's really hard to figure out. I know our guest who joined the anarchist debate last Wednesday, Micah Naziri, is an advocate of castrating rapists, and I'm guessing pedophiles as well. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that's just a speculation. But it's a really tough topic to grapple with because it is such a, you know, I don't even know
you
how
have
to.
a problem today too, where you have media, I say quote unquote media outlets like Salon, running multiple stories trying to normalize something like this, and say, well, I was born this way and blah 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 blah. And look, you're talking it's really slippery slope when you're saying I was born a pedophile and this is okay. And look, just it's sick, and I don't, I don't know where they even come up with that, but it's sadly there's people in the world that feel that way.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And because this country, a lot of people look up to this country. We should be taking the lead here in the United States in starting to basically put the hammer down on human trafficking, because we have to take the lead, because we can't tell other countries to do something we're not even willing to do ourselves.
Yeah, and Derek Bros has been talking to me about, he's been investigating some stuff going on in Texas. I can't get into specifics because I don't want to jeopardize his investigation and stuff. But there's some stuff going on in Texas with human trafficking that we've been looking into. It got much worse during the Super Bowl. Obviously, we always hear about this kind of stuff happening during the Super Bowl. It was just a few weeks ago in Houston. So we're looking into that stuff, and it's widespread. People just don't. A lot of people don't know it. A lot of people don't see it, but it is widespread, man. Pedophilia and sex slavery and sex trafficking. This stuff probably has affected at least one person and maybe they just haven't told you yet. Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't tell you how many women I've met who have been affected by this stuff by a lot of times members of their family or people who are family friends. I mean, this stuff is so widespread that you wouldn't even believe it. I didn't believe it myself when I started learning about the statistics and stuff. It's unbelievable.
DB already mentioned the former Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, and then you also have a billionaire in Jeffrey Epstein, which was convicted and guilty of trafficking children, went to jail for 13 months.
And he's a good associate, a close associate of Bill Clinton.
Very close. And then you have a lady by the name of Laura Silsby, who was a close with the Clintons as well, with working in Haiti. And then she ended up being over the Amber Alerts, ironically enough, in the United States after she was already arrested for human trafficking. So this is stuff this is not conspiracy, Pizzagate. People can have the conversation with about John Podesta and so on and go down that list, but this is stuff that people have actually been arrested and convicted for. and nobody raises an eyebrow to it.
Yeah.
There's also Seville over there in England.
Well, UK, that's 3 shows in a row by itself.
Yeah,
The UK,
it's even more rampant, it seems, than it is here in the U.S. Jake Anderson, welcome to the show, man. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I mean, this is a nauseating subject, but certainly needs to be talked about. But it definitely seems like we're hitting a breaking point where this is being brought to a head. And I know DB and I are going to talk about it extensively tomorrow night on our show. And yeah, it seems like it seems like every day there's a new report. It seems to kind of prove that there is, I don't want to say a conspiracy, but there is a vast network of pedophilia in the undercurrent of America, and it stretches to the highest levels of power. And there's a giant apparatus in place keeping these people safe. Billionaires like Jeffrey Epstein that you mentioned, and Bill Clinton was on that plane like 17 times or whatever. So this is, I think America is about to learn some very, very horrifying truths about its own government.
And you know what? It's in our own interest to expose this stuff, and I'll tell you why. Because not only are these sickos out there and they do what they do, but there's even worse sickos like Jeffrey Epstein that use it to blackmail people, that use it to control our government. I mean, I would not put it out of the realm of reality that our government is controlled by some sick bastards that have blackmailed a bunch of politicians with their pedophilic habits. So, it's in our own interest to bring this stuff down. And you know what the big mistake I've been seeing today is people who like Milo are like, well, they refuse to believe it just because they like this guy.
But here's something the left needs to remember, and they have partially created this problem, because when you do have somebody like Sarah Silverman, for instance, who tweets jokes about pedophilia, or you have somebody like Lena Dunham who writes about it in her book, well, that's okay and it's excusable, and they can have them talk at the DNC, and they create a culture where like, well, it's okay. And it's always for political interest. Well, when it's not on my team, they're a monster. Look, this is right or wrong. This isn't right or left.
Exactly. We can't let partisan blinders make it seem like, we're not going to get mad about it when, it's Podesta being accused of it because we're on the left, or we're not going to be mad when Milo tries to normalize it because we're on the right. It's like, it doesn't matter what realm of the political spectrum you're on. Pedophilia is not okay. It's not okay at all, and so, it's just one of these things where people allow partisan blinders to get in the way. Now,
and it's both parties. It really is. I hope people that are listening understand that if you're pro-Trump, you're in for, as long as you're a Republican who's pro-Trump, you're in for a rude awakening. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it definitely is. Both parties. It goes throughout the corporate spectrum. It's there. We just gotta expose it, and hopefully more stuff that happens, like what happened today, comes out, and we find out what's really going on. Because that's the only way we're gonna stop it, and that may be the way we get our government back from being run by a bunch of lunatics, because they may be being blackmailed by people who have got evidence on them on all this.
We need a whole new Congress and a whole new election, Nick.
Maybe Alex Jones is right. The government is run by pedophile vampires that are sucking the energy out of America.
They are. They honestly, man, think about how many kids go missing. 800,000 a year. How many years have these groups been in power? 50? So we're talking about, can someone do the math on that? How many lives have been pretty much snuffed out?
Yeah, dude. Who knows? Who knows, man? So that being said, you guys are going to talk about this tomorrow night, and I'm sure SM Gibson is going to be talking about this a little bit tomorrow. I'll be on your show most likely tomorrow, so we'll continue on this.
Who knows? We may be talking about Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, Monday Night Raw, or whatever. We've got Manny in the studio, and dude, you've been doing a lot of great work on immigration, and this also ties back to the whole Milo thing, because like I mentioned, the guy, basically his accomplishment is that he's made talking shit about immigrants cool again. And that's basically his intellectual accomplishment. He goes around the country saying how bad Mexicans and Muslims are, and he makes it because of the fact that he's gay, Jewish, has a black boyfriend, is an immigrant. He uses that to disarm his detractors by saying, well, I can't be homophobic because I'm gay. I can't be racist because I've got a black boyfriend. I can't be anti-immigrant because I am an immigrant myself. Well, I'm here to tell you that just because you're an immigrant doesn't make you not an asshole. So this guy goes around trying to get people deported. He goes around trying to spread xenophobia, tries to convince people that Muslims are inherently bad. He tries to go around talking about how we need to snitch on our own neighbors and classmates and get them deported, breaking up their families and stuff like that. This is Milo Yiannopoulos. This is what I have disliked him for a very long time, long before I ever found out that he was sympathetic to the pedophile cause. And Manny, I want to talk about immigration tonight, dude, because shit is not very comfortable for immigrants right now in this country. First of all, they're being affected by xenophobia. Just the sentiment that Donald Trump was elected on was very anti-immigrant, anti-Mexican, anti-Muslim. Now the argument can be made that well maybe Donald Trump isn't racist himself per se, but there's no denying that he was elected on a wave of xenophobia. And Manny, I know you've experienced this stuff firsthand with an increased uptick in racism, but you've been doing a lot of stuff with the cause of immigration. So tell us real quick about what you've been doing, and then let's start talking about what's going on and how we're going to deal with this issue of immigration during the Trump administration.
Between LA and obviously San Diego into Tijuana, I have been out there with my shirt that says, "Do I look undocumented?" and stop racial profiling and start fixing immigration. And I started realizing as an activist out there that I've seen hate around the United States for a long time, but it's been kicked up a notch four times worse. It really is. At the personal level, it's kicked up at least another, at the personal level, it's kicked up 25% to 30% for me. I mean, when I have people all of a sudden think that they have a license to hate, that they're willing to call me a wetback, and I started hearing some other two words that I haven't heard in a while, greaser and spick. I mean, that's a problem and stuff like that, and they think it's okay to do that because Trump is in office and stuff like that. So we've been basically fighting him on the immigration issue in Los Angeles, down here at the border. We're having a rally at the border on the 25th again. A lot of stuff that's happening in Mexico City. The stories that we've been hearing from the Dreamers and saying how much, things are happening to them because of this in school and all that. Even some teachers have been racist against these students and stuff like that. I've been coming to State University and, basically in San Diego. I had never had to come to San Diego as much to support our Muslim brothers and sisters as much as I have this last 6 months. I mean, to have a woman that was attacked just for being Muslim, I mean, we're starting to have problems like that. A lot of our Muslim brothers and sisters have been killed because of it. And when I hear those stories, and it's hard not to affect. I don't care how strong you are, it has affected me and stuff like that. And to the point that somebody tells me personally to go, even if I'm legal, to go back to my damn country, and I better start speaking English because I'm in America. We have a big problem and stuff like that. And it's a very sad problem. Just like in Mexico right now, that the government's taking advantage of what's going on, with people. It's already bad enough. The gasoline's going up 20%, blah, blah, blah. And now they're going to have to deal with the laws that are affecting them because of Donald Trump's embargo against the 20% hike on avocados, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's all because of basically in Mexico, they're saying that they never saw any president hate Mexicans as much as Donald Trump does and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so this is something important to keep in mind, that even if Trump, even if his economic protectionist policies that are obviously going to affect Mexico, even if they haven't come into effect yet, just the way that he talks about people is having a big time effect. I mean, maybe this guy was used to being able to go around during his business negotiations and bad mouthing businesses and CEOs to try to get a better negotiation. this is no longer a private business meeting. This is a public messages, and people across Mexico are starting to hear the shit that he's been saying about them, and they're getting really angry. And there's a bunch of Mexican Americans here in the United States that are U.S. citizens that are also being affected by this rhetoric. And now there's reports of checkpoints being popped up. I've mentioned this on the show several times. My own brother was held up in a checkpoint for 2 hours and detained while they tried to figure out if one of his friends was a U.S. citizen, which he was. He's been a U.S. citizen his entire life. And they detained him for 2 hours. So, people are being affected here in the United States by this anti-Mexican rhetoric and this newfound boldness of the, immigration people and the Border Patrol and the ICE and all that stuff. Go ahead.
Hey, Nick, is it because of that whole stupid 100 miles from the border, there's no constitutional protection crap that they snuck in NDA? Because I haven't seen any of that up here. And then also what I've been noticing is more and more people are moving here from Mexico. And a lot of people are like totally fine with it. Nobody seems to be tripping out at all. And like people are just integrating up here totally normally. So I wonder if it's some crazy shit going down over there, because it seems over here people are just super tolerant of essentially everybody. It's weird.
Dude. Just the other day in City Heights, which is like an immigrant neighborhood here in San Diego, there was a immigration checkpoint. So like literally just on the streets in San Diego, which is a city in the United States, they're putting up checkpoints and they're asking people for their papers. I mean, everybody was worried that this kind of shit was going to happen under Obama, that he was going to establish martial law and blah, 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 blah. It's like, it's actually starting to happen under Trump, and like it seems like nobody gives two shits about it. It's like, where is everybody? Like, they're stopping people in the streets and asking them for their paperwork. This is insane, dude. And I'm telling you right now, people around here are starting to get really mad. And the situation is going to get really, really ugly really, really quick unless the country comes out even stronger than it has so far. And I applaud the people who have come out so far, shut down the airports, come out and protest, standing with the immigrants, standing with Mexicans and Muslims and everybody else that's here. I applaud but we need to
shut the port down, Nick.
We need to come out stronger and stop all this shit now. Otherwise, we're going to be in for a nasty fight, dude. And nobody wants to see what is going to come if that starts happening. It's going to be nasty, particularly here in the Southwest, dude. Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico, it's going to be nasty if they start putting checkpoints up everywhere. I mean, these checkpoints are going to start getting blown up and shit. It's going to be ugly.
Things I want to say, too, that's the reason we actually boycotted the LAX in Los Angeles. Why? Because it affected me so bad that there was people that had proper visas, but they were from the wrong country. Their visas were taken away. They were issued by immigration, and all of a sudden they were not valid no more because of what's going on with Donald Trump. You cannot be taking somebody's visa that hasn't expired yet just because they're from the wrong country and stuff like that. And that's why we were basically at the airport, letting these people that were coming in that they weren't alone and stuff like that. And we made it very clear when it came to the refugees, because the bottom line is our chant basically became no hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here, and stuff like that. And we also said another chant at the airport, say loud, say clear, immigrants are welcome here, stuff like that. And it was a sad ordeal at the airport because you're seeing people that all of a sudden were taken away from their family when they were hugging them and say, excuse me, your visa is no longer valid. And yet a lot of people's visas were still 6 months valid. But because of Trump, all of a sudden they seized them. That's criminal right there.
Hey, Nick and Manny, because I know you guys live in, of course, SoCal, and I don't anymore. Has there been a huge uptick of military stuff going on, like more choppers or stuff by the border or anything? Because now it's starting to make sense what Jade Helm might have been about, right?
Nothing like super noticeable, man, but there's just, in military presence, nothing noticeable here. Because it's already so militarized here that it would be hard to notice it. It may be happening. I'm not sure. I haven't noticed any uptick, but we have noticed an uptick in immigration, border patrol ICE and people like that, setting up checkpoints in cities. Normally, there's a static checkpoint. There's several static checkpoints in San Diego County. There's about 5 of them that I'm aware of. Most of them are at choke points. There's one on the 15, which heads up north into towards Nevada. There's one on the 5 north that heads towards LA. There's one on the 8 east, which heads towards Arizona. Normally, that's where all the checkpoints are at. They're like at choke points on the freeways. But now they're just popping up at random locations, like on city streets. It's ridiculous, dude. Like it's really getting to that point where that. Those memes about the Nazis saying "papers, please" and stuff that people used to make under Obama, like those are actually coming true now. Very dangerous. And DB, back to what you were saying about the Constitution free zone. I think that's why they're able to do this. Like these checkpoints aren't legal. They're unconstitutional. But because of laws that Obama signed into place, they're able to quote unquote legally do this, even though it's
I think it was 2012 NDAA.
Yeah, and so. That brings up.
Do you see people just blow by if they're in an expensive car, if they look like they're obviously not who they're looking for the checkpoints? You
know what? I'm not sure because I haven't been through one of the ones on city streets yet. I've only been through the normal ones at the regular choke points, and they seem to be operating relatively normal. However, I did see a report the other day that they were checking everybody's paperwork at one of the main checkpoints, the one that heads up into LA. Although I can't say for sure because I wasn't actually there, but I heard that they were checking everybody's paperwork and stuff. So,
well, Didi, I'll tell you what has been happening since you said about militarization, that I've seen something that I haven't seen in a long time. Immigration is now getting on buses, and I don't mean Greyhound only or trains, Amtrak and all that. They're also getting on city trains like Metrolink, Coaster, Sprint, and they're also getting all these buses that run around LA and stuff like that. We never saw heavy immigration on transportation like we are seeing now.
Dang. Are they? And then I've also heard that because they're pulling so many people, that the conditions are as deplorable as over on the other side of the border. Like they're just slamming people into 50 into a cell and stuff, and they're getting really poor care.
Yeah, actually, I tell you what I don't want to do anymore when I cross the border, because now they want to check your phone. I won't take my phone across the border anymore.
Yeah, dude, I've been hearing that they've got these immigration detention centers that are kind of just jam full of people. They separate mothers from their kids and stuff, and they just throw people into these immigration detention centers. I mean, these are dry runs for FEMA camps, dude. And I hate to run down that conspiratorial avenue, dude, but these are basically human being detention centers for people who haven't committed any crime other than trying to flee from a bad situation. I mean, these are, many of these immigrants. Some of them are migrant people who are just looking for work. A lot of them are refugees, man. They're coming from Central America. They're coming from Mexico. They're fleeing the drug war, which is fueled by the U.S. They're fleeing cartel violence and stuff. A lot of these people are refugees. They're being detained and thrown into these detention centers without committing a crime other than crossing an imaginary line on a map.
Manny, is it true there's thousands of Haitians that are in TJ right now?
I would say so, 5,000.
Yeah, dude. Last time I crossed the border and came back, there was a bunch of those dudes from Haiti just sitting out there in line, dude. It looked like they're on some type of other line, though. Their line doesn't seem to be moving. It looked like they're camped out there. Yeah. They look like these guys were sitting there for days and days at a time in line.
We need to interview these guys. These guys are probably victims of war crimes over there.
Yeah. So
I like that.
You've got a bunch of people fleeing from situations many times caused by the United States. And these people are not coming over here to hurt you or steal your job or to bomb your house. They're coming here because we're bombing their houses. They're coming here because we've decimated their economy with the Neo-Monroe Doctrine. They're coming here because we've instigated a drug war that has left tens of thousands of people dead. They're not coming here for nefarious reasons. They're coming here because they're fleeing nefarious situations. And so this is what really pisses me off about Milo, is he goes around making the victims of this world into as if they're like the aggressors or something. It's like, oh, immigrants are coming here to like take over your country and shit. No, they're coming here because we already took over their countries. Like, it's like, what in the hell is wrong with people if they believe this shit? Like, what is wrong with the people that are following Milo? There's something they don't read or something. They don't know anything or something. Like, they're so ignorant that they believe this shit that it makes me want to slam my head against the wall, because every time I post some shit on the anti-media, you got these assholes. Well, you know, why are they coming here? Why aren't they staying and fighting their own battles and stuff? Because we just blew up their house. That's why. Jesus, do these people not understand that? What the hell is going on? Joining us now, we got Shannon Madden. What's up, dude? What do you think
What's going on, fellas? Nick, I want to rewind this just for half a second, because you mentioned the FEMA camps and in the same breath as conspiracy theories. Let's go back to World War II and what happened with the Japanese Americans who were legal citizens, who were paying taxes, contributing to the economy. I mean, that's not a conspiracy, man. That's a real thing.
Shit, dude, you're breaking up there a little bit. Can you say that one more time?
Can you hear me now?
He was just talking about the internment with the Japanese, how that was a dry run in itself because they could use that on any group now, and it's written into the NDA of 1948. And then also it was reiterated in the NDA 2012. I did look that up, where all American citizens, foreign and abroad, home and abroad, could be considered enemy combatants at the discretion of the government.
Ooh, man, that's heavy.
You were talking about this, Nick. Everybody was so scared of Obama throwing them in FEMA camps, and that whole kind of narrative that went around for a little bit. And you say, well, they're already pulling people over, and we've got checkpoints, and everybody we've got on the call right now, Jake, DB, and Shannon, and myself included, we're not here on the border. Like, y'all have a completely different perspective than everybody else in Middle America, and because Middle America doesn't see this, they don't see the incoming threat. So I think it's very important for people that are on the border to document what they can. No pun intended, document. But document all this, put it on social media, spread the word best you can, let everybody know that this is happening, because I think first off, you do have to remember what you're talking about with Milo. There's people that you can show them the truth and they're not going to believe it until it comes on their front door. Mm-hmm. And there's just a certain demographic of people that are that way. And there's, honestly, I hate to say it, there's really nothing you can do about that. But there's
always going to be idiots.
Right, but there's other people out there that if you show them this information, show them what's actually happened, something that they would never know or never see, because y'all do have a unique perspective here down on the border.
Because you know what? Like, the media isn't going to show you that we're creating all these refugees.
Well, of course not.
They're not going to show it to you, because then that would mean questioning our foreign policy. We all know the media does not question U.S. foreign policy. If it moves, we bomb it, and the media loves it. I mean, look at the media's coverage of Iran lately. Look at how much have you seen fear-mongering with Iran, dude?
Listen, this is all you need to know. The media will attack Trump if he sneezes wrong, and yet they have not attacked him on
Iran.
That's it. They haven't attacked him on anything other than Russia. Like it's an episode of the Brady Bunch.
And when they attack Trump on Russia, they're trying to push him towards war, not away from it.
Exactly. So think of it that way, how everything Trump does is just the worst, most horrible thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. And yet, we've already seen multiple civilians killed by U.S. airstrikes since Trump has taken office, and guess what they've said about it? Nothing. Because
zero.
He does.
Mm-hmm. Can Hillary voters please stop trying to push us into a nuclear Armageddon, you asswipes?
Seriously, dude. Seriously. Anyway.
I will say one thing, that some people in Juarez are cashing in, and they're basically knocking down the steel border on the Mexican side, and they're recycling it. So that's kind of an advantage for them,
Did you guys see that drug catapult they found the other day attached to the border over in Arizona? Yeah. That was.
Oh yeah.
Oh, big time.
That was hilarious, man. They're pulling up medieval tricks to go innovate around this border. They're launching bundles of drugs over now. You're not going to stop it with the wall. I'm sorry to tell you. You're not going to stop the flow of humanity. You're not going to stop the flow of drugs with the wall. The only way that you could stop the flow of illegal drugs is by legalizing them, bringing them out of the shadows. The only way you're going to stop the flow of illegal immigration is by legalizing immigration. Make it a lot easier. And here's the thing. I want to dispel a couple myths here. First of all, Muslims are not dangerous people. There are terrorists of every race. There are terrorists in every religion. In fact, in the United States, you're more likely to be killed by a white right-wing extremist than you are by a Muslim, and even lower by a refugee. There's like, it's almost, you're never ever going to get killed by a refugee. That's just, you're not going to get killed by a refugee. Let's just get that out of the way right away. Look up the statistics. Go ahead. Go look it up on Google. Go find out how many people have been killed by refugees in the last 5 years. And if there's more than one, then ask yourself, out of 330 million people, if one gets killed, what percentage of, what odds do you have? Basically none.
And I want to say this real quick. I'm not demonizing anybody here, but statistically, if you go look at how many Americans are killed by police officers versus how many Americans are killed by immigrants, you'll see that is a drastically different number.
Yes.
And
you're much more likely to be killed by a cop than by all other terrorism forms combined. All terrorist forms combined. And so
yeah, we had like one major one up here, which was Somali guy. He wasn't a refugee; he was an immigrant, and he was just randomly stabbing people in St. Cloud. But yeah, that was just like one out of thousands and thousands of people. And now, of course, the backlash of that.
Had a bunch of mental issues, you know.
Oh yeah, he was totally nuts. I mean, he was starting to get. Here's the thing, like I'll keep repeating, fundamentalist religions, it doesn't matter whatever it is. If it's crazy hardcore old school Old Testament, women are nothing, I can kill people and whip people and rape people because God says it's okay. Any of those religions cause terrorism. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, nobody's got a monopoly on terrorism. The other thing,
that's the IRA.
The other thing, talking about legalizing immigration. Immigration is amazing for the economy, dude. This is the biggest myth that needs to be debunked here, because everyone's like, oh yeah, we're gonna build the wall, and that somehow is gonna fix the economy, and we're gonna make Mexico pay for it by raising everybody's taxes. It's like, oh wow, you guys actually believe that stuff. You got to actually do some research instead of believing in these emotionally charged talking points that are coming from Trump and others like him, like Milo. These are emotionally charged talking points that aren't true.
What were you
Immigration
talking about
helps
North Carolina
the economy.
the other day?
In North Carolina, there was, what was it? There was like 6,000 farming jobs, right? And out of all of those jobs, now forgive me, I could be slightly off on the numbers here because this was like 3 days ago, and I read so much stuff that I forget the exact numbers. But basically, there was like something like 6,000 farming jobs available in North Carolina. Only like 120 Americans were willing to take this job, despite the fact that there was thousands and thousands of unemployed people. You know how many people made it through the entire growing season? Americans, U.S. citizens? 7 people. 7 American U.S. citizens made it through the entire growing season in North Carolina out of 6,000 jobs.
That's hard work.
And we want to throw the immigrants out? Who's going to cook? Who's going to make your food, dude? Who's going to grow everybody's food? These are jobs that that a lot of people in the U.S. don't even want to take. So whose jobs are they stealing? The only jobs they're doing is putting food on your goddamn table. This blows my mind, dude. It blows my mind. But look it up. I mean, go look up what immigration does to your economy. Go look at the countries who have a shrinking population. Go look at Japan. Go look at Europe. Go look at Russia and look at their economy. Go look at any country who has a shrinking population, and I'll show you a shitty economy. You look at the U.S. economy, and it's doing better than a lot of the rest of the world because we have a booming population. That's why we're doing so good. Why is China doing so good? Why is India doing so good? Why is Brazil doing so good? They all have one thing in common. China may be run under a communist state. The U.S. may be run under a crony state. We all have something in common. We all got a booming population. Now, in the U.S., it's not the white people having all the kids anymore. You know, it's Asian people, Latino people, black people. You know, they're the source of the population growth, and they're the ones keeping the economy afloat. So anybody wanting to kick all the immigrants out and build a giant wall, you're asking for a pay cut. You're asking for a decrease in your standard of living. If that's what you want, by all means, you could have it. But I'm not going to stick around to be part of it. I'm not.
Hey,
I'm gonna fight.
I can say because of the amount of people that I'm meeting up here that are moving here, that are Latino, that are integrating, that are hard workers, that are a valuable part of the economy, that America's overwhelmingly, and me and Jake went into this last episode, it's a Latino future. So you might as well learn Spanish. My kids will.
Well, Shannon, you, just based on your daily profession, you probably know about this as much as anybody, and you see immigrant workers. Do you see a problem? Is anybody's job being stolen?
I'll tell you right now, right off the bat, and I've been very vocal about this, particularly here in Alabama, in the Deep South. Usually job sites are manned by white guys. All of your job foremen, your subcontractors are all pretty much white guys. There are certain buildings and places that we work in Birmingham where it's kind of frowned upon to have somebody other than the standard white guy. You'll have your typical, usually the Hispanic fellows are the sheetrockers, the painters, and they're given the more menial of tasks. And then you get to know a few of them and find out that back home they were building houses, and they're kind of sitting there on these ladders doing this menial work, looking at these people, just saying, "Man, I mean, and the way that they're talked down to, the way that they're degraded, and I mean, it's about as open as you want to get." Little older white guy standing at the foot of the ladder going, "Andale, andale," and laughing. And I mean, this is stuff that I've actually experienced recently. And of course, I can't let stuff like that go unchecked, so I'm not as popular on job sites as I used to be. But yeah, that's from what I've experienced, and it's also made because of our extremely, extremely difficult immigration laws here in Alabama, probably some of the toughest in the nation. There's a lot of problems with them actually being able to find legitimate jobs and actually plug into the system and pay the payroll taxes and so on and so forth. Because of the way our law reads, there's a lot of jobs that they just simply can't take. It is about as a racist of a bill as you want to get. And it's very disheartening because, the Hispanic friends that I've actually met and kept over the years and kept in touch with and see from time to time and go out to eat with and socialize with after hours. It's absolutely disgusting, pretty much.
Of that, Shannon, is if they were about 230 and could run a 4.2, they would fix their problems real quick, would they not?
Absolutely, and it's absolutely sickening. Look, I can go off on that tangent. That's another show. But that's personally what I've experienced. We have a weird situation going on in Birmingham, Alabama, though. Birmingham, Alabama, the local government here has actually declared Birmingham as a sanctuary city. Alabama is very red state, voted Republican across the board for every single, and always does, for every single national position. Trump, and of course, Jeff Sessions is from here. So the state is already fighting Alabama against that. Everybody's pulling the rule book out and the law book out and showing, where this is going to be ineffective and so on and so forth. So it's put us in a really precarious situation because Birmingham is a little kind of, a more liberal city in a very, very red state. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, if that actually even comes to fruition. But if you're Hispanic and you're looking for work, Birmingham's a great city. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, people forget that, or I say forget, and in fairness to them, don't realize that Birmingham and the rest of the state of Alabama are two totally different things.
Very vastly different universes. Yes.
It took me moving out of Birmingham to other parts of Alabama to go, oh, wow, all the stereotypes were true. Because growing up, I was like, what are they talking about? We're not all rednecks. None of this is true. And then...
That's the same situation in Arkansas.
Oh, sorry, I get it now.
What were you saying, Jake?
That's the same situation where I'm from. I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, and Little Rock is, metropolitan and, liberal, and then all around it is a completely different universe. So it's kind of a similar situation.
Deliverance. Yeah.
And don't forget the Rose Law Firm.
You guys are responsible for Bill Clinton, aren't you?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny because the Clinton Library down there kind of triggered a huge kind of economic growth in the city. Actually, Little Rock was actually one of the few cities that was actually doing well during the recession. They had a pretty incredible economic growth there, but it's so interesting because Little Rock is predominantly Democrat and pro-Clinton, and then the rest of Arkansas just despises the Clintons. So it's just this weird dynamic, and Arkansas always goes Republican. So it's just a weird dynamic there.
I'm going to bring Manny back into this, but before I go on, we've been talking about secession movements and stuff with the California exit movement that's going on now. We're not going to go too far into that, but I've noticed with every state, there's a huge difference between the big cities and the rural areas. I mean, why don't the cities secede? Why don't the countryside secede from the cities? I mean, it would make more sense because, the cities want to run the state a certain way. The rural areas want to run it the other way. I mean, it almost makes sense to be secession from those cities. The cities secede from the states secede from the cities. I mean, anyway.
You mean UN 2030 now?
I haven't heard about that yet.
Mega cities.
I really I think that our cities are big enough as it is. I think that maybe it's an unnatural way to organize our humanity. It's cities. We weren't made for cities. We were made for humanity was born in a tribal order, and now we're in these super states, mega states, and empires and stuff. I think it's an unnatural way to organize us. That's why it's so. That's why I think our society is so dysfunctional in many ways, is because we've unnaturally organized ourselves into these mega giant cities.
We got to spread out.
Say a couple things. One thing nobody talks about, but let me say the first one, and then we'll say the second one. First thing is, if you wanted to go to McDonald's on Thursday, you were screwed because McDonald's found out that they had to close all the McDonald's down because they put signs out there they didn't have enough workers. So I guess they without an immigrant really affected them. Seriously, a lot of business just closed down. Soup Plantation, McDonald's, you name it. A lot of businesses closed down. A lot of them closed down because they were with us. Some of them had no choice but to close down because they didn't have enough workers. That's number one. Number two, I want to say something that Mexico has been very welcome to the people from the United States, because the bottom line is there's so many undocumented basically Benalla and Benalla brothers and sisters from the United States. They're in Mexico living down there, and they are undocumented. They are not legal in the country, and yet the government is not deporting them back here.
Would you point this out to people, Manny? Because I have heard so many people go, well, if you went to Mexico, they'd throw you out if you didn't have papers. And blah. I know that's not true for 1,000% fact, but you know better than I would. Explain to people it doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't work that way, SM. It's a mess back. And the people, I'm glad you said that, because the people that are down there, it's not just 100 or 200 or 1,000. It's thousands of, people.
Hundreds of thousands.
100,000, U.S. citizens living down there.
Not a million.
And Mexico says, hey, as long as you're not doing anything wrong in Mexico, you can stay here.
It's like,
regardless.
Hey, it kind of makes sense. You guys are bringing in money.
Yeah.
You're doing work. You're spending. You're going to restaurants. You're paying rent. You're owning property. Wow, it almost seems like you guys are helping the economy. And I'll tell you what. This is what is the most frustrating. The immigrants in the United States, 99.99999% of them are helping this country. They're adding to the economy. They're paying taxes. I don't agree with taxes, but they're paying taxes. And they're doing everything the way everyone else is doing things.
And for people, by the way, that say they don't pay taxes, Try going to the store and buying something and not paying a tax.
Yeah. Go to the store and tell them, oh, no, I identify as an undocumented immigrant. I refuse to pay your tax. They're going to say, get the hell out of my store.
Yeah.
So anyway, like the thing I wanted to say, before I bring you back in, Manny, the point I want to make is that, you know, immigrants are not the issue here. We're not broke as a country because of immigrants. Our economy is not in shambles because of immigrants. We're not living paycheck to paycheck because of immigrants. We're living paycheck to paycheck because the parasitic ruling class ripped us all off. They jacked everybody. In 2008, all your money got taken. They jacked you. And then they turned around and said, oh, it's the Mexicans that did it to you guys. That dude that's cutting your lawn and that dude that's putting food on your table, it's his fault. It's not my fault. It's not Goldman Sachs' fault. It's the guy that's over there doing the work that nobody else really wants to do. That is, to me, the most frustrating thing, dude, is that they jacked everybody and then they blamed it on somebody else. And guess what? A bunch of idiots believed it and they elected Donald Trump because of it. That is what pissed me off the most. And don't get me wrong. Screw Hillary Clinton, too, and screw Bill Clinton and all the Democrats, too. They're all assholes as well. Yeah. And you know what? Obama sat there and bailed all them out anyway, so screw him, too. Plus, not only that, Obama deported more...
Cheeto XL.
Cheeto XL. F you too. But Obama deported more people than any other president in the past. So the Democrats are not innocent here. Screw them, too. Just because we're criticizing Trump right now does not mean that we're sympathetic to the Democrats or to... anybody claiming like they're going to fix this thing without being honest about the problem. Manny, back to you.
And people in the United States have to learn one thing. Myths are one thing and facts are another one. There's two facts right now for an activist that does his research. One fact is this. The bottom line, yes, there's a lot of immigrants, from Latin America that we tap into the system, $1 billion. But if we're bringing in $12 billion and we tap and get help from whatever, with $1 billion, you still have $11 billion profit, basically, the bottom line. Another law that people don't understand is this, and it's very simple. The IRS law states this. It's legal for anybody that's undocumented to pay taxes into the IRS. That's legal. What's illegal is you cannot file a tax return because it's not legal for an undocumented to collect that tax back from the IRS.
Yeah, dude. So, of course, there's some people here that are immigrants that are getting welfare and they're getting food stamps. And, the welfare...
A very small percentage, I might add.
It's a small percentage, but the fact of the matter is that the immigrants that are here put in way more into the system than they take out. That's the one thing. The second thing is, if we're going to talk about wasteful spending, welfare obviously needs to be reformed. It's all corrupted and it's inefficient. If we're going to talk about wasteful spending, let's talk about how the drug war has cost us $1 trillion since Nixon declared the war on drugs. That's kind of a big expenditure, wouldn't you think? And let's talk about another expenditure, the foreign policy.
Nixon,
the foreign policy.
Took us off the gold, which collapsed the value of the dollar completely.
Which totally messed things up as well. But the foreign policy, probably the single biggest expenditure that the United States has, that we all pay hundreds of dollars a year to support, is the main thing causing the refugee crisis to begin with. So if we're going to talk about reducing spending and we're gonna start saying that welfare needs to come first, I think we should take the advice of Ron Paul. Cut where it's easy to cut. Cut the foreign policy first, and then once you get rid of that, the system starts working well, you start being flush with cash, then you could start reforming welfare.
Well, hey, how about if we're gonna start talking about cutting welfare, what about corporate subsidies? That's kind of welfare too, isn't it?
Corporate welfare? DB, real quick, we're about to end the show here.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if Trump wants to leave any lasting legacy, just decriminalize marijuana on a federal level. You don't need your wall at all.
It would save us billions, and help reduce the burden on the health insurance as well. Thank you all for tuning in. We're coming up to the end of the show. That was the Anti-Media Radio special guest, Manny in the studio, SM Gibson, Chairman Madden, David, DB Schwartz. Shit, I revealed his identity. Holy shit. Jake Anderson. Thank you all for tuning in. Peace out.
See you guys. Have a good night.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.